Hi, I'm Michelle Cooper, and I'm back in the studio after spending a weekend in the North Cascades with my watercolor students. We've been working on making a watercolor nature journal, and this was my page from Saturday. I've already got my line drawing of this scene in permanent waterproof ink, so that when I pre-wet the sky or put any other washes next to the ink, it won't smear. Now I'm dropping in some cobalt blue into the pre-wet area for soft-edged shapes to represent the blue sky behind the clouds. I'm painting in the negative space. Once I have the shapes that I want and the values that I want, then I have to wait a little while for the edges to stay soft and move into the pre-wet paper. I can put this yellow, this is a raw sienna here, to represent the warmth of the sun, and use the tip of my brush to create some soft edges. I'm adding some purple to the yellow sunny shape, and then I'm using darker values of cobalt blue to create the soft edge where the clouds and the mountains meet. Now the paper needs to be dampened again a little bit here with a pale gray wash. Then into that I'll mix a little bit darker gray here and drop that in to help represent some of the cloud shadows, giving us a feeling of the wind blowing up there like it did that day, and making the shadows of the clouds represent a three-dimensional look. Now I want to establish an atmospheric distance for this very distant mountain where it blends with the mist of the clouds. So I'll soften those edges in. Then, while this is still damp, I'll drop in some darker color along the edge to establish the skyline of that distant mountain, and change the color up a little bit. I used ink for the middle ground and foreground shapes, especially the outlines, and that pushes those shapes and forms forward. But I want soft edges for anything that's in the distance or the far distance to give us a feeling of atmospheric perspective. This section is very close to my center of interest, so I want to make some color statements here, variations in color. Not too bright, but not changing the value that much here either. Now I want to make sure those edges blend just right into the previously dampened area, and then carefully, without letting them smudge too much, I'll add this much darker, stronger, and warmer line of trees here to push the middle ground forward. I don't want this hillside to look like a coloring book, so I'm going to vary the colors without changing the tone too much, but just to give it a little bit of interest as it comes up against the closer landform. By now, the background mountain is dry enough, so when I put these strokes in, they're not going to bleed back. And this gives us a nice projection of this whole hillside coming forward. Darker value against a lighter value as well, making sure that I don't paint over the bridge shape at the top. Now I'll do the left-hand hillside or mountain shape. Slightly different color, a little bit cooler and duller. And I'm working my way around the negative space of the foreground trees. I don't usually use the tip of my brush so much, but this is a pretty small sketch, so I'm having to be careful about preserving some of this foreground tree group because I want them to be light against dark. I can drop in a few colors back here, but I don't want an awful lot of contrast between the entire hillside and its edge too much. This little peninsula and island here need to be a little bit warmer than the background hill against which you are seeing them contrast, and a bit lighter value. And then I can put some much warmer color, this raw sienna here, against the edge of the foreground hillside, and that will give us another color, a variety of color, to contrast with each plane going backwards or coming forwards. I'm not planning on making a traditional corner-to-corner frame for this sketch, but rather I want to vignette this composition and let everything sort of blend out toward the lower edges. Now I have to check some of the negative spaces here to push the middle ground and the background behind the foreground, and change a few colors or values here and there to create some contrast. I think I could use a little more cloud shadow in this corner. Blend it in so it'll look like it's soft against the edge of the mountain. Drop in some darker color for better shadows. I think we need a little more form in the clouds there. So I'll add some darker values. And then once I've got that value in where I want, then I'll come back and with a damp brush and just soften some of these edges. I think I'll lift out another little shape right in here just to create a little bit more interest. And I think we'll call that done. So here's how it looks with the rest of the page, leaving me a space to write some narrative when I'm ready. So here's a little reminder of where we started and a few little close-ups. You can see more if you check out my Flickr account or my blog. And the entire whole page, kind of a long page, about our Saturday in the North Cascades. Thanks for watching. See you next time.